is the sex education for the parents. Some of these slides are a little old, but there was a survey. I didn't do it, but I sort of citing them. In your opinion, at what age should sexual and reproductive health be discussed with young people in school? And 40, almost between the ages of 15 and younger. In your opinion, who should discuss sexual and reproductive health with young people? And you can see 80%, and this is secular, has nothing to do with the church. Parents and caregiver should be the primary responsible party to discuss sex and reproductive health with young people. Of course, comes after that, you can see later on community religious leaders, and unfortunately, those people become now number one because a lot of us parents do not do our job. School, unfortunately, are doing a very confusing job nowadays. I haven't looked at the Board of Education in San Francisco, but I looked at the Board of Education in other states and the curriculum that's being approved by several areas, several regions. And the curriculum is very confusing, to say the least, very threatening also. Another survey, another question that was asked to the same survey, and these were parents and educators. In your region, who supports teachers in discussing sexual and reproductive health? Basically, they said there is no support, Ministry of Education, local health professionals, and so on. Okay. Why do we need to discuss sex education? What happens when we don't? And I mean it that sex education must be discussed at home, because I can tell you it's so confusing nowadays to leave it to the media and or school. We used to leave it to school to some extent. Now the schools have their own agenda. So it's very dangerous that homes and parents do not do their job. So the dangers of absence of sex educations include, number one, that these kids will grow to have tendency to accept wrong experiences because they are not sort of warned or forewarned. They are allowed, they may be exposed to sex abuse in the future because we forgot to do our job. Unfortunately, those kids who do not learn the correct, appropriate ideas, they will get wrong ideas about sex. And unfortunately, the wrong ideas, usually either it's very loose with anyone at any time, or very restrictive and very scary and nothing really healthy about it. Dangers of absence of sex also can result in fear and anxiety and suppression. Fear because the boy and girl sort of growing up scared from something like sex because he or she feels it was not discussed by anyone he knows, and he hears horrific ideas or stories. Or the reverse, becomes very anxious, wants to know, very eager to get any information, like thirsty for any knowledge. And unfortunately, the knowledge that comes are usually very poorly derived knowledge. Perverted sexual concepts drawn from bad friends. When we do not offer the appropriate sources, these kids start getting their sexual ideology and concepts from their friends and from media and from YouTube and from Facebook and from Instagram. And I'm sure, I guess, or I hope that you are aware that the information available there are really basically experiment with anything at any time. If you are a boy, you can experiment with any gender. If you are a girl, why are you still virgin? And unfortunately, if you do not talk to your kids, you are leaving them to have a lot of perversions because their friends are either want to do it with them or they don't imagine anyone can be a virgin around them. So they like to either make fun of or they like to bring them down. Again, one of the very bad things or consequence of absence of sex education is really they go to the pornography sites trying to learn their answers, how sex happens, how do people do sex, what does it mean a boy or a girl, or a boy and a boy, or a girl and a girl. And unfortunately, pornography is looming to be a very common practice among boys in the 90%. And this I have Coptic statistics. I did my own survey in several high school retreats, and I can tell you it's not different than the American one. Unfortunately, girls are climbing up in the late 40%, high 40 percentiles. So it's almost half of the girls, maybe because of curiosity, not because of excitement. Increased desire to have excuse me. So those kids who are not well informed about sexuality, they experiment on themselves, and they may self-stimulate themselves, whether boys or girls. And this is, by the way, very common, both boys and girls. In the adolescent age, 12 and up, it's very common. And if you assume that your girls are not doing, please think again, or you are not talking to them enough. From my service, I humbly tell you that the numbers are not as rare as we may think. Of course, boys is very common, but even girls. Again, part of this is oppression and suppression, and I'll come back to that. But part of it is lack of education. One of the bad things that can happen because of lack of education, that they fail in their future marriages. Unfortunately, many adults are married today. They feel that sex is filthy, is unclean, is God looks down at it, and they have very poor sex life in their marriage, and it can ruin their marriage. Or they are so involved in porn that porn is also affecting their marriage. Okay. What are the wrong ways? So I'm not yet talking about how to do it. I'm just telling you why you have to do it and what are the wrong ways to do it. Being an extreme person or giving them extreme, whether too loose or too strict, are bad. Whether sex is so scary or sex is easy and everybody can do it, bad. Extremes are unacceptable here because you end up by having a child who does not know boundaries. Also, one of the wrong ways is to really describe the details of sins. Even the fathers in confession refrain from asking boys and girls to detail their sin. Mom and dad should never try to learn details of sin or trying to express the details of something like that. Also, it's very wrong when we do not know how to portray sex education in a spiritual and a holy way, that we make God as if he is a wrathful God against sex and God and very sinful, as if God did not create sex. And of course, one of the worst things that God hates that, God does not like this, will get God upset, and all of a sudden we portray God as a wrathful, a vengeful, a hatred God. And I always like to tell my boys and girls, we are not embarrassed to discuss something God was not embarrassed when he created. St. Augustine is the one who said that. Okay. Scaring kids from sex because I want them not to do it is also not a good thing, because it's not a switch flip on and off. What is he going to be when he grows up and all of a sudden he's still scared? So some of these things, when we do it and we are so indulged into scaring them from it, we end up by scaring our children and making them not able to know a healthy way of understanding sex. Of course, if I, as a parent, have wrong information, like many of us learned when we were young that masturbation makes you blind. Wrong. There is no scientific evidence of that. Masturbation will make you crazy or you will lose your mind. Wrong. No scientific basis for this. So you see, when you start giving them information that are not scientific, unfortunately, you lose credibility, because your kids may know, with all respect, all of you may know a lot of things about this topic more than most of us. And especially if you really want to give information, you better have the correct ones. You are not here to try to scare them by using the wrong ones. One of the wrong ways also is to be judgmental of your kid or others. It's best to avoid being judgmental, because remember, at the end, you want your kid to be accepted. You want him to know that he is loved regardless of what he or she are doing. So by you judging, all of a sudden you separate yourself from him as if you are the righteous saint as a parent, and he or she are just the sinful characters. Projecting meaning that you yourself as a parent unfortunately had wrong experiences, bad experiences, or sinful experiences. So all of a sudden, you talk to your daughter, let us say premarital relations, you assume that your daughter has to go through this, and you're projecting on her with a lot of harshness, and maybe she doesn't have all of that. You, as a young man, you went through a lot of crushes, and you acted upon your crushes, and all of a sudden you're projecting your fear and on your boy, and right away that's a wrong way of handling. All right, so what are the principles before you discuss sex? Please respect the topic and respect your son or daughter. If you do not know how to respect talking about something like sex, please find somebody else. You may be anxious, you may be stressful, you may be sweating, you may be tremulous, but again, you do not make it funny. Yeah, you can make a joke in the middle just to reduce the stress, but you cannot just make fun of the topic. This is a holy topic. I always tell my boys and girls, I am talking about holy sex. And when they laugh, I say, listen, God created it, right? If he created it, how cannot be holy? And I always, every 5 minutes, I switch between sex organs and the altar right away. And I move back and forth without them noticing, because it gives them sense of comfort, sense of relief, and they know that uncle is talking in a very respectful way. So I tell them, as we do not play in the altar, we do not touch or play our sex organs. As we do not use the Bible, the altar utensils in any wrong way, we do not use our sex organs in wrong way. As certain time to utilize the altar by a certain person in a certain time, in a certain occasion, your sex organs to be used in a certain time by a certain person for a certain occasion. And I have no problem at all equating the altar of God and the sex and the body. Because St. Paul said in 1 Corinthians 3, don't you know that your bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit and where God dwells? So it's very normal to keep equating. I tell them, look at the altar, it's always covered. Sex organs must be covered. Look at the altar. Not anyone can touch anything at any time. Same for your body, my girl or my boy. And I tell them that 15, and I keep repeating it. The message may get bigger, the message may be mature, but the same message is not going to change because it's a biblical message. So number one, respect. Number two, please do not complicate the topic. Don't try to bring big words and big topics and just to give it simply, this is the altar of God. How do you want to touch it? How do you want to present it? Who's supposed to be in charge and be responsible for it? Also, simplify the matter, even if you have to talk about sex between mom and dad. And this question will come a lot. I tell them, Habibi, mom and dad became one person when they got married. They are not two bodies anymore, they are one. So if my head hurts and I put my hand on my head, is that something nasty or something sensitive or something shameful? My head hurts, my hand is part of the same body. So it's the same thing when they have sex, because they are one body, not because they are two persons. And God allowed this relationship for them to grow in love, to express their love to each other, and to be one, and to feel the needs of each other. And I talk to them with simple, unshameful, I am very confident that this is God's intention. So why I should be embarrassed? What is in it that's to be embarrassing? Our problem, the media corrupted us parents and made us so unclean in our minds that we think that God, like we need to cover up for God, as if God needs our defense because he did something embarrassing and we need to cover for him. We don't need to cover for him. This is so godly. And if you read Hebrews 12 in the middle of the chapter, he says, the marriage is honored and the bed is, the marriage is undefiled and the bed, no, the marriage is honored and the bed is undefiled. The marriage is honored and the bed is undefiled. Meaning they talk about that very, very cleanly. There is no anxiety about it. Don't avoid any questions that can come. Try to answer. And if you can't, tell them, let me get back to you. I need to ask or read about it. I'll come back to you. But don't make up your own answers and then you find that these were incorrect answers. Like if you ask about masturbation and you tell him you're going to be blind, whom are you going to defend and how are you going to convey a message after that? If you don't know, say, I don't know. Well, let's look it up. Let's read. Let's ask another person who may be more versed in this. But please give accurate information. I'm giving you accurate information about for example, the percentage of porn. I'm giving you accurate information about the school education curriculum, and so on. Gradual increase in knowledge. When your child is 5-year-old, you start talking about the fish and the butterfly. When they are 10 and 11, you start talking about the menstrual period and the changes that happening in the boy and the hair and possible erection when he's asleep. And you speak about touching his body and you speak about the masturbation, that this is really, you are stimulating yourself, and this is the altar of God. Shouldn't you keep it not touched? And when they are 14 and 12 and 14 and above, you talk about when you watch things like porn, it will hurt you. It will defile the altar of God, will bring memories in your head, and will be stored in a memory that will come back to haunt you, sometimes even when you're about to have communion. That's called gradual increase. I started from a very tiny little baby, pure, do not know much except I am different than my sister, because he saw mom changing to his sister. Now he knows that, yes, we are different, but we are also both loved by God, both of us equal in the eyes of God. If you cannot give the right information, and in some occasions for single moms, they feel uncomfortable talking to their sons if they don't have a father in the house, it's completely normal to get information from another person or a correct source. And if you feel very uncomfortable, then you have to get information from a different source. I hope we do not always sort of escape from the duty by asking another person. If they start harassing you or asking questions or joking, and you feel very anxious because you're already very tense to begin with, please calm down, laugh it, go out and come back. Prostrate yourself with the sign of the cross without them noticing that you are doing that. I know it's challenging. I know this is not our kind of information we like to speak about, but believe me, you are the most important teacher in your kids' lives. You are the most stable, unchangeable teacher in your kids' life. Please do not minimize and do not exaggerate either. Do not say it's nothing, everybody can do whatever they like, and do not say if you do that sin, God will never accept you. Both are wrong messages. So these are principles. Of course, as I said, the sanctity of body needs to be kept repeated more and more and kept brought up more and more. And the more you feel embarrassed, bring the altar right away. Bring the chalice and the tray, and bring the shoria, bring all of this. Can you use it somewhere else? Can you take it and play with it at home? If you have a guest at home, can you ask Abuna to borrow it? No. These are meant to stay in the altar, and they are the reasons for the sanctity and the holiness of the altar. I like to give credit to Abuna Loa. Some of you may know him. He is here with us in New Jersey. He wrote this book that I always recommend servants and parents to read or to acquire. It's called The Purity and Orthodox Christian Curriculum. Basically, I think you can get it through Amazon. You can get it through St. Mercurius Church in Belleville, New Jersey. The good thing about it, every 2 pages, there is a different age. So if your daughter is 4, there is a lesson. If she is 5, a lesson, 6, a lesson, and so on. So the gradual knowledge I'm talking about is very much spelled into that book.
Sorry for disturbing you. We are teaching this book in the Maharagan al-Karaza.
Oh, really? I didn't know.
Maharagan al-Karaza. It's talking.
Excellent.
Yeah. But anyhow, yes, of course. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah. I'm surprised in Maharagan al-Karaza because it has so many ages, but maybe each age will pick up the few pages.
Each age is picking up, the suitable, the topic related to it.
Very good. When do you begin? You begin as early as you can. I like when I see even can flip and cannot tear apart, and they show the different types of roses. There is a green and red. There is a different type of bees. There is a different type of fish, and how the fish places the eggs, then another boy fish comes and puts something on the eggs, and she comes in and put the eggs in her mouth. And it's very fond, I'm very fond of parents taking this and talking about it without bringing the word sex or anything. Just talking about unity, talking about two different genders, talking about how different we are. Everybody, we need to bring the idea of different genders very early on, and to make the boy proud of his boyhood and make the girl proud of her femininity, because we are at a generation where this is being blended and becoming vague. So unfortunately, men are not proud of being men because nobody taught them what's a man is. He's honorable, he's brave, he's enduring, all of these things. We don't bring even movies that show men as taking care of people around them. We don't show femininity as the enduring woman, the mothering, the taking care of others, the sacrificing. All of that is beautiful in womanhood. And that's why we need to bring back, because our kids, when they grow up, they say, oh, I don't like to be a woman, I would like to be a man. Because maybe we never taught her how should she be proud of her womanhood, or the reverse for boys. At every phase, so going from childhood into primary grade, from primary grade to middle school, middle to high, I like the beginning of every phase. One of the things that sometimes I find it very helpful, when it's very sensitive for one parent to speak, he will talk to one of his friends and say, listen, I know you are good in talking about this. I'm going to invite 3 or 4 boys of us, and you come in, I'll get pizza, and we sit in the basement, no women allowed, and you talk about that. I am very uncomfortable. Can you please help me? And sometimes when 3 or 4 boys and one of the other dads is the one who speaks, no problem, you can do that. So that's another way. And the same goes with the girls, with the ladies. One of the ladies will say, I can't talk to my girls about this. Can you do it for us? Can you bring your girl and my girl and her girl, and we go for ice cream and we talk about it. As a family, we can talk about it. I actually, when a question is asked, or actually, I like the second sentence even more common. We are all raised in, whenever there is a bad or a sexual bad scene in a movie, all of a sudden right away we flip the channel, which I'm not against it. But the problem is, I, the child, know exactly what you're doing. And one day I will be curious enough to get back to the movie and flip and see what did you do? And sometimes we get so crazy and we do it. I can't find the remote. I can't find the remote. Where did you put it? And mom, and they are covering up the screen. And I mean, I'm not saying no to that, but I'm saying, what do you do after you did that? Now they became so curious and they want to know. So I think it's a good time. We said, by the way, do you guys know why we didn't want you to see this scene? Oh, mom, we know. Okay, so what do you want? What do you know? And let them say. But then you come back and talk about it. You say, for example, in Christianity, God taught us that this type of relationship between a man and a woman must happen after they pray in front of the altar and they become one body, which we call it wedding. If these people are not like that, then we are uncomfortable watching it, because now they are becoming like animals, because animals do not have boundaries. Mom and dad have boundaries. Uncle and aunt have boundaries. This and this have boundaries, meaning they are loyal to each other. They will stay loyal forever until they die. They never leave each other. And that's how our Christian marriage is. Unfortunately, we don't want you to see this, not because that we are worried about you, but because we don't want you to learn something before you learn the right thing. And then they will ask, so what are they doing? And you can say, they usually are naked and they start touching each other a lot. And then they start laughing and they are uncomfortable, and of course you are very uncomfortable, but at the end you tell them the reason we don't want to do something like this because you are the body is the altar. So if the body is the altar of the church, how can they play with it in such a less respectful way? And all of a sudden, they are making it as if it's something less honored, less revered. So I took the movie as an opportunity to talk about sexual stuff. I just spoke about that while watching the movies. So now I told you about the when and the principles. Now let's talk the how and who would you offer it. So usually through dialogue by the parents and the children. I like the car dialogue. I find it one of the best places because he cannot disappear. He cannot leave you. It's really a captive audience. You're taking your girl for a piano lesson. So through the class, you say, by the way, I know this is maybe awkward, but are they doing any touching in your school, boys and girls? Oh, mom, everybody's doing that. You mean you have seen these things? Of course. Have you actually seen a sexual scene? She said, yes. So how do you feel? How that makes you feel? And talk about it. The reason you do that, not as much as curiosity, but you want to open the door that your daughter can speak to mom at anything, for anything, and at any time. By you allowing her to know that you are not shutting that door, that by itself is an amazing dialogue. How do you feel about it? What if somebody wants to touch you? What would you do? What if somebody wants to kiss you and you are not comfortable with that? What would you do? Ask these questions to your boys and girls, because we are at a time where we worry about who is doing what in every place, in school, in transportation, in retreats, in conferences with their schools, in trips, and so forth. The school, of course, is offering it, which may not be the best place for the school to offer it, because unfortunately they are in some states, as I mentioned, are teaching a curriculum that everyone can choose their gender and everyone can change their gender at any time or many times, which they call it sometimes liquid gender, meaning I'm moving from boy to girl and from girl to boy, back and forth. Of course, you can use a clean media or a clean book and discuss it with. I want to plug in something that I don't mean to announce it, but please look up Fireplace in CYC. It's a very, very good, well-designed program, several speakers. One of them is Dr. Yusri. And we covered all types of sex issues. It's called Fireplace on CYC. If you write CYC and Fireplace, one word. So there is one about masturbation, one about porn, one about sex education. I think everything is covered, even intimacy between husband and wife. Okay. How do you offer it? You offer it also through Abuna or through the servant. And in many places, as for example, Maharagan al-Karaza now, as Abuna said, you guys are discussing that through a servant, which is great. Maybe debate. A person will take the sort of the loose side and the other one will take the more controlled side. One will take the purity and the other one will take the freedom, and so on. And you keep playing that game until they get the point. Through questions, as the questions I just entered. Pornography is becoming very common nowadays.
Okay.
How often do you watch porn? You don't ask him, do you watch or not? This is not, you never ask a question that the answer is yes or no. How often do you watch? Is it every day? And he tells you, I watch, but not a lot. So what do you mean by not a lot? Can you stop doing it or you can't? And what does it make you feel? Because by the way, porn makes boys very stressed and very ashamed and feeling very guilty, by the way, boys and girls. So eventually their academic performance will deteriorate. So if you notice any of these, it's not wrong to think and to even discuss that topic. Ask him, for example, did anyone try to touch you in school? And how did that make you or make you feel? And so on. Okay, father of confession is very important in this age. Of course, it's important in every age, but especially in adolescent age, because you can't imagine the shame and the guilt that these kids feel once they feel like they unloaded their sense of guilt. They feel so good and so free. So ask them about father of confession and how often do they go and so on. So speak to your kids about the sanctification of the body. And as you all know, this slide is just, everybody knows it. All the program that we have dealt with from the beginning. But very important to keep my boys and girls, as soon as I get them to have any time in their hands, gym, piano lessons, language lessons, anything but staying alone. The worst thing for them to be engaged in wrong things is to be less busy. Always talk about the sanctification of the body. So, escape from bad friends, bad scenes, laziness, low self-esteem, repentance, and hope. Those, of course, common and known, and just basically any Orthodox will repeat them blindly. You talk to your kids about the blessings. When you are pure sexually, your mind will be pure. And actually, when your mind will be pure, you will have peace. You will not be stressed and will be anxious. And eventually, your personality will grow and become stronger. And you will find that you are making much better relationships. Some of them will be holy relationships that you can treasure for life. And then eventually, you'll have a stable, good, fruitful family. And then you will be able even to guide other people and to have a better society. I sometimes like to, for the girls, I usually go and, if you go and put the purity pledge anywhere, you can buy these rings to them. And I used to make the Sunday school classes do that. So they buy it, and if each ring comes with a purity pledge. And the purity pledge says, I commit to, from this day forward, that I have a pure life, to please, to honor, to obey God, to honor my parents, to love and honor my future spouse. And I always tell them, there is somewhere in the world today, there is a man for you, or a boy for you, and a girl for you. And don't you want to be honest and sincere and loyal to that person that you haven't seen? And I make them sign, and I give them this, and I keep a copy. And again, there is a lot of even actors and actresses now are doing this. There is a magazine which is very famous among ladies that they were pledging their purity to their father. So they go on a date with their father and they dance, and she pledges that she will keep her purity. So I'm trying to tell my boys and girls, we are not alone in this, and we definitely want to be a place, because we want to please God through our bodies. As St. Paul wrote, sanctify God in your bodies. Your bodies are His. Sanctify, honor God in your bodies. Glory be to God forever. Amen. If you have any questions, thank you.
Dr. Hani, thank you very, very much. That was so important.
You are muted يا أبي أنا مش سامع. مش عارف ليه مش سامع.
Can you hear me now?
أحسن كده.
Thank you very much, Merci, Dr. Hani. That was so informative. God bless your service, and thank you very, very
Habib.
much. Thank you. Please, any questions? We need
I
to
have a
take
question,
advantage.
Abuna.
Okay, go ahead. Mary, go ahead, Mary.
So, what if we try to start up a conversation like this, but our child is too shy and he's not engaging and he feels, what are you saying?
Yeah, it's not going to work from the first time, especially if you have not got them used that you are willing to speak about it. The first time will be hard. Keep and persist in doing it. And as I said, you may not do with your daughter alone. Perhaps another time, bring another daughter, another friend of hers, and you and her mom can sort of dialogue together. Also, make it dialogue rather than a monologue that you are going to talk about. I mean, you don't start by saying, let's have the sex talk. Nobody wants that. But while you're talking, while you're having fun, you can ask the questions that they asked, whether they have seen something, somebody touched them, what is their experience with it, what is their opinion in this, and so on. But don't get discouraged. It's too important for us to give in and surrender and say it didn't work.
So, would the books, for example, work if I just provide some books and make them available for them and just have them read them? And I know that the sources are good and everything. And later on, if they have questions, they can just ask me. Or if
I know you are very uncomfortable. I understand. I would be the same. But believe me, the books are good. It's not like you are opening and allowing your daughter to talk to you. I think after they read the book, it's probably the best way while you are taking her on a car ride and nobody else in the book and talk about it. Maybe ask a question that was asked in the book and ask her opinion, and keep after her. At least let her know that you are not closing that door. But please do not just satisfy yourself that books are enough. I will. Even Abuna Loka's book alone is not enough. The problem with the books that they have much better books. I don't mean in knowledge, but much better presentable books and media, that if you put Abuna Loa book and some of the YouTube they have, unfortunately, Abuna Loa, who I love as a friend and a brother and a father, he will not win. He will win with us, but not with the kids. So, but you as a mom has a better way because you are interacting. The book, unfortunately, will not be. Any other questions?
Yeah, I like the way that you said that maybe if we are watching a movie or something like that, and something that is not matching with our beliefs showed up or popped up, okay, we start discussing that with the kids and taking from this point and then start to introduce them that this is not the way that God created. This is not the purpose that God created for example, for sex or for the relationship and for so. So I was just asking if the same question that Mary was discussed with her kids, for example, that a lot of things are going on in the schools and a lot of people are just doing a lot of things, and we can see people that they're just living in a way or having a relationship which as say بالظبط ما انت قلت كده حضرتك, they are just having kind of physical relationships, and she can start to negotiate with them from this point. What about something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. إنه يعني I think the more options we have, the better off we are. I think I gave several perspectives and several ideas, and I'm sure Otsek can give much more. The more we give and the more we have, because as Mary said, she's uncomfortable talking, for example, and I'm okay with that. It could be a Sunday school teacher. It could be a group of women together. It could be a dad taking some of the kids and in the game. We did this. I mean, I did with my boys when they were young, not alone. Some of the other boys came because their dads didn't, and we all talked. And they still remember and they still laugh at it, and they are in their 30s now. But I can tell you, as much as it's uncomfortable, they treasure these things, and we should not relinquish our job as parents who are educators in a topic that the world and the media and the devil is using 100% to skew our kids' brain into transgender, into homosexuality, into many perversions. So I can tell you, it's not just the sex education, it's actually preservation of gender. It's now becoming too basic. We have to talk about.
I have a question, Dr. Hani. How the parent can avoid the subject في السكول? I don't know what the best way they can do it or deal with the school.
Yeah. So I can tell you, in New Jersey, they signed a law that's now being taught in New Jersey. It's not yet a law in New York, and to my knowledge, it's a law in Los Angeles, in California. I think it's a law, but you know better. If it is a law, you cannot opt out. To my knowledge, the way I read the Board of Education curriculum in New Jersey, you cannot opt out and say, I don't want my kid to learn about transgender. You can't. So that's why I'm saying, unless the church and the home, both of us, do our job, we are going to lose our kids, because they have an unopposed wrong message from the schools. So we have to give our clergy, Sunday school teachers, moms and dads, all of us. But I don't think you can avoid Hanan, because it's a curriculum. They will fail.
And if by the end of the letter, they are mentioning that, as the state of California is saying, that you can opt out or remove your student from this program. So it's optional. So, okay. But it's hidden at the end. Okay, so it's a big letter, two pages, but it's hidden. Yeah.
And OTSEC need to educate the people about the opt-out, because in New Jersey there was no opt-out. They did some protest, and to my knowledge, they were not accepted.
I have a question or two. So how to handle? Hello, do you hear me? Sorry about that. The question is about how to handle having kids in different age or different levels. For example, my boys are 4 years apart. So the amount or the level of details is different for each one. And I think they will learn from each other. Also related, how to handle peer effect, what they learn from peers, whether at church or at school, from people who has different principles and values. Okay.
The first question, you cannot teach both of the 4 and the 12 or the 6 and 12 in the same time and the same knowledge together, except the altar part. So you cannot, because the message are different. We said we need to graduate in our knowledge. I cannot talk about porn in front of the 4-year-old and this 5-year-old that's a lot younger. So I think that has to be in 2 different occasions, and it could be with other kids similar to their ages. As far as the peer pressure, again, as I repeat again, we are confronted with so many pressures from the media, from the peers, from the schools, from the world, and we need as a church and as families to become very strong in our teaching. We keep teaching the right thing and we keep repeating the right thing. We are not alone, by the way. I just want you to know that the Quran, many of these things, it's just that the devil is so upset about us only. So you will never fight, they are fighting against Muslims or against Jews, but they will find a lot of fights against Christians. And it's clear, it should be clear to us, but we should not let our kids know that they are alone in the world. Actually, so many cultures are not happy with what the school system is doing, but we need to keep at it from our education. So the peers is like, what can I say? I mean, everything the peers can affect our kids. They can make them steal, they can make them deceive, they can make them drink, they can make them take drugs. The only way is to raise our children in the fear of God.
So, Dr. Hani, I have a question.
Yes.
So, if it's only, like, if they only told us that the curriculum they are going to teach, like in this meeting or whatever, it's just sex ed, not say they're going to talk about transgender or anything like this. So you are advising us to opt out if we have the option. I know that we have the option. They told us you can check the curriculum before we give it to the kids and stuff like this, and you can opt out. Or they will, the other opinion that they will be, like my kid, he will be the only one who didn't listen to this session or whatever, and then he will hear about it from his friends. They will be talking about it after that at school.
So I think you should read the curriculum, and before you opt out, you should talk to your son, and I think you should talk to other moms as well. If it is not about types of genders, then I am less worried about it. I don't want you to opt out in everything, because I don't want your kid to feel nerdy or different unless several of his friends are also doing the same thing. And that's where the power of moms, when they talk to each other, especially if you find a couple of friends there, and they all say, yeah, I'm not comfortable, and 2 or 3 of his friends are doing that, then it's fine. But please read the curriculum. I actually would love to learn from you what you will find in the curriculum, because I'm trying to learn a couple of states around me, but I didn't know that you guys have an opt-out. So this is something I just learned.
I'll try to send it to you, Dr. Hani.
Yes, please.
I'm looking it up right now, but I'll try to send it to you.
Okay, thank you.
And Dr. Hani, I had another question.
Yes.
So regarding like being overprotective, like you're saying, and Abuna was saying the same thing, an example of watching a movie and it has something that's inappropriate or something. But like my kid's still young, but I try as much as possible, like before we watch something, that I check its rating and if it has anything. And again, I don't know how I can be successful in, like, till she's a teenager. But the question is, like if I succeed and I've been overprotective and she hasn't been exposed to something like that, and I haven't got an incident as an icebreaker to start this discussion with her, what are your suggestions on to start this discussion with someone without having an incident or an icebreaker to start this kind of discussion?
And how old is your child?
My kid's still 5.
Yeah. So I think the 5-year-old, I love to start like Abuna Lu'a's book. You will find speaking more about the fish and the butterfly and the drawings and some graphics, and you can bring Mimo and other things like that. And I think that's enough. It's enough for them to know there is something from the mom and something from the dad. When they come together, they bring a baby. It happens with butterfly, and it happens with fish. I don't think I need also to tell her that your body, habibti, nobody should touch except mom when she's bathing you and the doctor. No one else should touch your body, and she should learn that as little as 5, because I don't want anyone, God forbid, to mess with her body. So those are the things I would do at this age.
Any questions? Thank you, Dr. Hani, for keeping you so late. Thank you very, very much. ربنا يعوضك كل خير
No,
ويبارك في
thank you,
خدمتك.
Abuna. ربنا يخليك
Thank
دعواتك.
you very, very
Thank
much.
you,
ميرسي.
Hanan.
ربنا يحافظ عليك. Thank you very much. ميرسي.
سلام يا ابونا.
اتفضل اتفضل دكتور هاني اتفضل.